with demonstrated ability to improve academic and social emotional proficiency through the development of relationships, team building, and innovative strategic planning. While serving in various leadership capacities, Dr. Wilbert is passionate about making a positive impact on her students, staff, and community each and every day. Dr. Wilbert does have a little bit of an interactive presentation here, and she'll be showing a video. And we can try one or two ways. If you have questions along the way, you are welcome to type them in the chat box. And we can try to address those, but I think it might be better if we go ahead and just address them at the end of the presentation. But what I'd like you to do is type them in as you think of them so that Celeste can read them afterwards, and we can make sure that you don't forget along the way. The presentation will take approximately 45 minutes or so, and then we will open it up for further questions at the end. Just to let you know also, this will again be recorded and it will be posted on Access Resource Hub. So that will be available that way, and we'll also follow up with an email to the link to all of the attendees today. So I will go ahead and introduce Dr. Kelly Wilbert, and thank you again for joining us today. Take it away, Kelly.
Well, good morning, everybody. Well, I guess it's afternoon, isn't it? Well, thank you for the introduction, Barbara and Celeste. I appreciate you hosting and taking any questions, since I can't see the questions, but I'm happy to stop at the end or along the way, whatever it fits the needs. I appreciate all of you taking time out of your day just to join us. I hope you had a wonderful holiday and had an opportunity to recharge over December. Thank you again for the introduction. You shared a little bit about my background. I'll just kind of quickly add that I'm in my 7th year as an elementary school principal here at Canyon-Crest Elementary in the Fontana Unified School District. But really beyond blessed to work alongside an incredible school and community members that really include everybody from our school board, superintendent, district members, teachers, parents, support staff, and of course, the best students ever. I can't wait to see them next Tuesday. The coaching, I have to really give kudos to Brandman University, and no, they did not ask me to do this, but the coaching at Brandman University has been absolutely instrumental in helping to transform our environment here at Canyon-Crest, and so here at my school. And so just a really huge shout out to the staff and all the instructors there. I had the opportunity to complete my doctorate there and really to be mentored under really very caring and dedicated instructors that really continually went above and beyond to support our work. In addition to working here, I've also been assistant principal at a K-8 school and worked for district in a small and large school district. So there's definitely pros and cons working in small and large school districts. I'll share a little bit about my upbringing to kind of tie it into why that's important to make sure that we bring every kind of opportunity to our students, to our kids, to every kid that is in front of us today. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, actually, where my first language was Greek, lived in a single family home, no car. So, when you hear those stories like, oh, I walked all those miles to school in the snow. So that was me, but that is a true story. Actually slept in the same bed with my mom until I actually left for college. And so over the years, I share this with you because over the years, what I've learned is that it doesn't matter the background. Parents just all want the best for the kiddos. And I always keep that in mind. And I share this because I want to keep that in mind as for us as educators. Like I said at the beginning, our job is really to provide the best experiences and opportunities that we can for all the students in front of us. I love my work. I'm passionate not only about my students, but about people, and just, it's about the whole ride, isn't it? This whole journey, and it's about relationships. So as we start on, I really want you to just stick in your name right there. So dear, whatever your name is, because I can't see you or hear you right now, I'm formally inviting you to take a journey with me to rethink how you can disrupt your school or district. And we're going to do this in 1 hour. And no, I am not talking about this kind of disruption at all. I'm talking about the kind of disruption when we actually surpass the current needs of our students, but we actually go beyond that to really anticipate their future needs so we can really develop the potential to disrupt our current systems. And that's what we need to be doing really, is looking beyond that. Now, though this term's been around from a couple of decades at least, it's something that we need to remember in our changing times, economies, and technology. Actually, this next quote is something that is forever daunting. I know you've probably seen it before, but I'm going to read it with you right now. We are currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. And that is a fact. That's what we're doing right now. And again, I know you may have heard this quote before, but I always like to I have it up here in my office, and I just as a refresher to keep in mind that it is a little daunting. It is a little overwhelming. So as you think about this quote and reread it to yourself, really I'd like you to just think about what those implications might be for you. What conclusions can you draw from that statement about how we're preparing students? So think about the implications and the conclusions we can draw from that, because it is really important as we think about and prepare the skills and nurture the skills that our students need. What are their future skills? So you know a lot of what these future skills are needed, but as we draw on research and what organizations and companies are saying, we know a lot of these future skills. There is a skills gap in how we're preparing our students. And gosh, we're doing our best, but there is a dilemma when we really consider these 10 soft, the top 10 soft skills. So as we look at this list, these are all great skills, and we're doing our best. We think about communication skills. These are not new to us, but there's a renewed interest in how we're nurturing these, especially when we consider that at the end of the day, here in California and across many states, we're preparing our students, and they need to be tested by state assessments of the CASP. And although our CASP and our state test really prepare our students with some of these skills, that are nurtured, it certainly does not address or seek out to bring out the best in all of this, of how they adapt and so forth, for an example. So this is really just something to keep in mind as we plan our year, as we continue in this new year for what we have set aside for our students, for our teachers, for our families. How are we working these soft skills into what we do, into our environment, into our culture on a daily basis? In fact, in a recent, so we talked about, the missing skill sets and misalignment. I got ahead of myself there. But really, the missing skill sets are, we have the CASP and the state test, and then we have these soft skills, and they don't always align perfectly, do they? So I was really, really curious as I started I started the Brandman program in 2014, and I wanted to know, I was very curious about P21, which stands for the Partnership for 21st Century Thinking. I want to see what are they all about, and this chart, I really love this chart because it really lays out that groundwork, that framework about what is important, about what we need to be doing. And as I look at this, it's like daunting, isn't it? There's a lot going on there. But I really wanted to research and find out what are the schools who have been identified as exemplar in integrating 21st century skills. What are they doing, and how did they do it? So I got started on my doctoral program in 2014 at Brandman, and I started researching, and unfortunately at the time there was only 2 elementary schools in the state of California that had been identified as exemplar by P21. So I really started looking and researching a lot of the other schools, like more on the East Coast, that had been identified. At the end of the day, for proximity reasons, I kind of delved into a couple of the schools that were here in our state and spent a lot of time interviewing and a lot of back and forth between a lot of traveling between Northern California and Southern California. I really want to look at and highlight the best practices that I was identifying at that time. So I will let you in on a little secret as I did this. And again, this was my passion as I was, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, in 2014, I just barely completed my first year at Canyon Crest Elementary School. I was new as a principal, new to the position, and new to the district. So of course that first year was so critical that I develop relationships and really get to know the lay of the land, and already acknowledge all the wonderful things that were going on here. I will share, as I delved into the research, yep, I said I have a secret. Although this wasn't a part of my formal research, I will share with you that it was really interesting to me that one of the two schools that I researched had, although they were both identified as 21st century exemplars, one of the schools had the highest state scores in the district, and one of them had the lowest state scores in the district. And so that was a big aha for me, because they were both doing these amazing things. But of course, right, at the end of the day, we want to see those scores. Of course, it's not just about scores, but we want to see it all tie in together, don't we? So my takeaways, basically, as I went back for some more visits, kind of down, sometimes you just find me down the hallways at these schools interviewing parents and students, just to really see what was going on. And these were my major takeaways from these schools. They were focused. They all had a growth mindset, whether they called it a growth mindset or an innovator's mindset, that was threaded. Students, the culture, the parents. It was in the physical environment. I would see it. I would see it in the way teachers encouraged their students, and just the communication and their feedback. I would see it with the principal and talking to parents and talking to teachers. There wasn't a lot of, oh, great job, even though, I mean, you did hear that sometimes, but it was more about encouraging the process. One of the things I also noticed is that resources were really leveraged. And that was something I knew I was going to have to take a serious look at, because one of the things I'll share is some of these P21 exemplar schools, not all, but a lot of them had a lot of financial resources. And that's all well and dandy. Isn't that great when that can happen? But we're 100% Title I school, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate that financial resources aren't always plentiful, and you don't want that to be, your first go-to, because what I noticed at these schools and what I knew at our school in our community is we had a lot of great skills and talents that were just not even only in our teachers and our students, but in our community and in our parents. So as I go on to like bullet number 4, relationships, that was so important to really get to know and develop those key relationships with community members, with parents, with teachers, with counselors. So we got to the point where people were really donating their time. And why? Because they were passionate about what they were doing. They were passionate about bringing these opportunities and experiences to our students who really needed to know what was beyond the walls of Canyon Crest, beyond the city of Fontana. What are those experiences, whether it was new engineering programs or whether it was new VAPA experiences, Um, for example, our secretary's husband is the manager at the local San Bernardino Theater. Pardon me. Um, we ended up starting a program here at our school where students were open to theater and speaking in front of a wide audience. And how cool was that? Where it ended up opening up to the whole district. So when I say leverage your resources, that was just really something that we learned along the way. How do we do that when, it's not always easy to say, oh, let me tap out of that budget or this budget. So that was one of the things one of our takeaways. So our story here, just to share a little bit about our story here at Kane Crest. Again, we had a terrific staff, loving, caring staff, but not all technically adaptable at first, right? And then, anything new is scary. Technology is scary, or it can be scary for some. So we got to the point from where there is like some teachers who really wanted emails printed out to them. That's just even 7 years ago. So we really knew that there was a lot of professional development and relationships that had to be developed before I would dare ask anybody to take that risk, to step out of your comfort zone. So that was so important for us. Starting again with the support from Brandman University and really understanding how to transform an environment and put, a framework in place and teams in place and professional development in place. 4 years later, I kept saying every year, oh, we're not ready to apply for this. We're not ready, because we had gone through a lot of changes, and all wonderful changes, wonderful struggles, right? It's all part of that journey. But it was so important to needed to use all the learnings from the schools, appreciate the history and culture, not just of Kane Crest, but of the district. Embrace the skills we had, really acknowledge our deficits, but ultimately leverage the resources and all the wonderful skills that people were just kind of waiting to offer. But again, it took developing relationships and earning that trust to be able to do that. We really went from, little collaboration to, right now, and as of, several years ago, every single teacher and some support staff members are on a leadership team, because of course, everybody is a leader on our campus. We have parent leaders, we have student leaders, we have staff leaders. But we didn't even have, actually, other than some desktops in classrooms, we didn't really have any mobile technology at the time. But we went from that to having like makerspace in the library every day, to integrating STEM, to partnering with Discovery Education, who've been a great resource to us, to having like teachers go out on the weekends, like to Lowe's, to buy paint and furniture to help create our innovation space, where we were now able to provide opportunities during lunchtimes before school. And so all these components together were really integral to the process. Let me just move on to this next slide. So this is just a slide right here. So I guess it was, just last April. Last April 2019, we were acknowledged with an exemplar designation. And again, this was a four-year process of really collaboratively working together, again, between our phenomenal superintendent, Randy Bassett, who's just such an innovator and such a visionary to our district folks, community, parents, students, wonderful counselor, who's just here all the time, and lots of folks volunteering and donating their time. So that was really, really important. So really, as I look at these faces right now, I'm just so just intensely proud of our staff and their development. And again, I'm just completely blessed to be part of this phenomenal team. I really am. So there's a lot of good things coming, and over, integrating all these different processes. But at the end of the day, we also wanted to see those test scores align, right? That was really important to the process. We didn't want it to be just about, oh, we're going to start this makerspace, or we're going to start this engineering program after school, or this theater or arts program. And while that was all part of it, we wanted that vision to be streamlined. That while we wanted to open up opportunities for our students, it was really important that the reason why we were doing this is because we wanted to hone those soft skills. We wanted to open up avenues and opportunities to communicate, to be critical thinkers, right? To foster that creativity as they worked in collaboration with other students, with community members, and so forth. So I'm really excited I was very excited to see that. This is our ELA progress, and so this is our CASP score. So we're from preschool to 5th grade here at Canyon Crest. As you can see, our trajectory there, we're completely on the right path. So what you're looking at is our percent of students who are proficient in language arts. And you can see the trajectory is completely moving in a steeper position than the state. And I will say, yes, we were way lower than the state, and it's easier to make progress. I'll be the first one to, give a little pat on the back, and then let's move forward. So, but it was really important, validating for our students and our teachers to see this, right? To see that their hard work was all coming together. It was all a piece of the puzzle. But remember where it started. Some of this was really uncomfortable, right? New principal coming in, new to the district, new to the position. I needed to appreciate the staff, but let me tell you, see that picture? That was like, life begins at the end of your comfort zone, right? And so actually that's me in there with Hawaii as my husband. You're probably chuckling. My husband convinced me to go on this hammerhead shark dive in Maui. And I'll tell you, it was a little scary. You can't see this in this, but I'm always like turning around. I was always turning around looking for him and looking for sharks. Ended up being super, super cool, but that's another presentation, right? The reason why I share this is we need to be willing, obviously, to get out of our comfort zone, right? So I want you to reflect, think about what was the last riskiest thing you did, whether it's personally or professionally, right? Are you willing to get risky if it means more opportunities for students, right? Are you willing to collaborate with all your stakeholders and, maybe not just the ones that tell you what they think you want to hear, right? So think about the riskiest thing you may have done in the last 6 months, right? Yeah, so don't ask your team. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't ask your team to take risks if you're not willing to take risks yourself. If you're not willing not to just to take the risks, but to model it as well, right in front of your staff. Did you know that in a recent study, actually, end of year study, and I was looking for something as recent. This popped up right from yesterday, so I want to take a very recent quote. And there's the link right there below. But in a recent end of year study, 50% of CEOs named uncertainty as the single greatest external threat to business. And I would wager that if we look just at the education field, that might be even higher, right? Because it's a little scary, but are we really ready? Are we, really nurturing those skills in our kids to deal with uncertainty? We know that for certain what we're dealing with is uncertainty, right? Does that make sense? So as I reflected on this, I will share with you and just be really transparent that one of the things that I really struggle with is speaking in front of people. And so I really try and force myself to do it. So this is a little bit easier because I'm kind of hiding behind my computer right now, am I? But Barbara could tell you I was a little anxious about getting on today. I wanted to make sure everything worked just right. But my staff knows that about me. And so I really try and put myself out. That's one way I try and put myself out there, just to really get out in front of people. Although I will confess it's a lot easier to do when you're super passionate about what you're talking about. I saw this next clip I wanted to show you. It really reminded me as we think about uncertainty and preparing our students with skills that they're going to really need, because we've all heard that, different data points and quotes about how our students of tomorrow will need to be prepared because as they change their jobs, the jobs are going to look a lot different. They're probably going to change several different careers. That's not uncommon for us to hear that. But long ago, gone are the days where, you were trained for one certain position. That was it. But we really need to know, how do we prepare our students to be adaptable in this changing world? How do we teach people to be flexible? And so I saw this next clip and I wanted to show it to you. And I believe it's just a little over a minute. So I'm just going to change my screen, but I'm not going to say anything more. I'll comment on it later. Hoping it'll work. Let's do this.
Producer Michael Bay. My job as a director is I get to dream for a living. Michael, you're known for such unbelievable action. What inspires you? How do you come up with these unbelievable ideas? I create visual worlds that are so beyond everyone's normal life experiences. Hollywood is a place that creates pure escape. And what I try to do is, as a director, I try to type this all off. Sorry, but I'll just wing this. Tell us what you think. Yeah, we'll wing it right now. I try to take on an emotional ride, and the curve. How do you think it's going to impact how viewers experience your movies? I'm sorry. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Michael Bay for joining us.
So going back to that, what did you all think? Right? Were you kind of cringing a little bit for Michael Bay? My heart went, I've seen this clip a few times now. I just go, every time I say, I just cringe. I'm like, oh, have we all had that Michael Bay moment? And obviously he's a very accomplished director, right? He's doing something right. But I know he's been given a lot of grief about that clip. It just, how do we respond when we have that Michael Bay moment? Do we flee? Do we fly off? Are we prepared, and do we wing it? Because, let me tell you, I felt like I was on an emotional ride for that 40 seconds while I was watching him. My heart went up to him. But we need to be prepared how to respond, because we need to be prepared for these moments, because how we react can really define how we view and overcome whether it's an obstacle, problem, or how we really seek out opportunities. So that's why I kind of like to share that. I know our students here now, and again, this happened over time, our students at Cancrest, they know that every Friday we have Friday Flag, and they know that I might just pull out the microphone and pull anybody up just at the drop of a hat. Hey, come on up here. And they're used to it by now, but they're also used to me to really not being the perfect speaker, messing up my words sometimes, and you know what, being okay with it. because we're not perfect. We all mess up sometimes, don't we? So as I think about that and I think about the specific things that we did to really disrupt, I want to go over the targeted and very strategic ways that we did transform our culture. And I know I've threaded them into what I've talked about so far. But we were absolutely very strategic in what we did. We had a plan. We had teams. We had professional development. So be strategic. Don't try to do everything all at once, right? When the only certainty we have is uncertainty, right? We need to be strategic about how we're using our time. I want you to consider starting early. Oftentimes in school districts, we focus on our high schools, and don't get me wrong, we need to do that, right? We absolutely need to do that. But as we think about, a portrait of a graduate or what we want our high school students to leave, I want us to really start also starting early. What do we want our preschoolers to look like as they enter kindergarten, or our 5th or 6th graders to look like and be equipped with before they get to middle school? Let's close that gap earlier on and focus on their needs so that when they get to high school, that gap won't be quite so large. So that gap when they go to college, not so many kids will need to remediate, for example. So starting there, knowing the needs of your school. Every school, every district is so different. Know your community. Develop those relationships so you can seize and leverage those resources. What I talk to really, as we're planning long-term strategically, make sure that your vision is aligned to the district. And that was one of the things that, components that was really super cool. Again, I've mentioned our superintendent, super visionary, puts this vision out there for us, but also allows for creativity. So that's been a blessing, huge blessing. Completing our long-term and short-term goals with our teams, with our leadership teams. And don't forget, we had a family involvement action team that we put together. So aside from our staff, we also had we called it our FIAD, or again, our family involvement action team that got together, and they had their own professional development, which leads me into our leadership teams. I'm getting ahead of myself. But knowing your staff, leveraging their expertise, and really providing PD to all. You've heard me talk a lot about leveraging our resources, but that is really important. For example, on the top left-hand corner, you'll see that's the California Theater. How cool is that for our students? You might recall that I said my secretary's husband, who's the manager of the California Theater, was just so willing and open to coming and teaching our students because he wanted to. And guess what? His wife is very passionate about the arts. But our kids, now it's opened up to the district. And again, that took a few years' time to get up on stage and perform with real choreographers, to get up in front. And what's our number one fear? Remember what I talked about? My fear is getting up and talking in front of other people. But you know what? Having experiences like that, it's not that they're all going to become actors or singers, but you know what? They got to, let's go back to our 4 C's. They got to communicate, collaborate, be critical thinkers as problems arose, right? And they definitely got to showcase their creativity. One of the other things we got to do is we had a lot of moms coming on our campus and volunteering, but we noticed that our dads, we didn't have a lot of dads. So in the bottom left-hand corner, we said, let's get our dads on board. And so as I started to research, I learned a little bit about something called Watchdogs. And the dog stands for Dads of Great Students. And that's exactly who our dads are. And as we did this pizza kickoff, all we asked our dads to do was commit to one day, because our dads are mostly, full-time, working outside the home, So we asked them if they could dedicate one day to come on our campus. What we noticed, our dads didn't really necessarily want to be in the classroom tutoring or working one-on-one, but they love being on the basketball courts. They love, you see that little walkie-talkie, the little radio on the side? They love carrying the radios, and they would like go up and down the hallways. But you know what? That meant a lot to us, because you can see from that picture is our school borders a park. And although it's very safe, you sometimes get people that we don't necessarily want coming up to the fence and talking to our kids. So you better believe our watchdogs, yeah, they were on it. So here's like another way to leverage our resources. It caught on. Every time they come, they get to have lunch with their kiddo. We take pictures, we put it on our wall, put it on social media. They love it. It's really a win-win for everybody. One of the other things that we noticed after we surveyed and talked to our parents is a lot of our students were waiting outside in the morning, quite a few. And so this did take some finagling, I'm not going to lie, but we had a 25-minute bell schedule change in the morning. So without any more cost to anybody, without violating any contracts, classified or certificated, and not going beyond any scope, we were able to open our doors 25 minutes earlier in the morning. And so now we've addressed several needs, right? Our kids weren't waiting outside, parents were getting to work. And so as we looked at what are we going to do with this time, we now opened up, actually what the picture next to bell schedule change is a picture of our library. And our librarian now started hosting makerspace opportunities. So some different STEM opportunities in the morning. So they got to come in, eat breakfast, and then our library happens to be right across from the cafeteria. So that was a win-win for everybody. We're providing opportunities. We're making sure they're safe. Parents feel good. Parents are getting to work earlier when they need to. Another thing that arose out of this is our, I have to give a shout out to Julie Bello, our phenomenal counselor. She started our student tech team. And so they were actually pushing into teachers' classrooms to help with technology. But it started with really surveying, leveraging our resources, and now pushing these kids out, starting in first grade, to help teachers with different types of opportunities that involve technology. So again, it was just a win-win for everybody. Is that a cool picture? Yeah, I don't know. I threw that in there because I love that face, right? That's the face of one of our kiddos after finishing an engineering program that he couldn't do and had sometimes gotten a little frustrated with. But I just threw this up and you're probably chuckling to yourself, but you know what, everybody, that's why we do what we do, isn't it? He was so excited. I can obviously see him now, but I remember that day because he's one of my kids that sometimes got frustrated. But he's doing so well. And so one of the programs that we brought is we've partnered with Engineering for Kids, who's again provided phenomenal opportunities for our students. And huge shout out to them. They've done wonders for, we continue to host them every Thursday for our kids. But I wanted to plot that picture up there to remind us of just that excitement and like that renewed energy that he got from that. And again, one of the things we integrate here at Canyon Crest, of course, is our growth mindset. And so, yes, it's cool that we're very strategic about some of the things we wanted to hear coming out of our feedback in teacher classrooms, but it was super cool to now hear it coming out of the mouths of kids. Like, I couldn't do it before, Dr. Wilbur, but now I got the basketball, or now I got this. So we're seeing that integrated throughout, whether it's the playground or the hallways. And as I look at the time, I'm gonna speed through the next couple. You see, I just paused on that because I got excited. If there's one thing I am passionate about what I do. I love what I do. So the other couple of things I want to mention is don't forget that professional development along the way. And Actually, the bottom right-hand corner is me right there doing, I think it's like a second or third grade math problem with another principal. One of the things that our cohort, I love, that our cohort of principals got together and said, we want to make sure that we have additional professional development in math. So that's us. Yes, we are doing a third grade problem, but it was important for our teachers to see that we're willing to do that too. And so make sure if you're asking your teachers or your staff or your parents to start this new initiative, to take on a new risk, to be bold, to try something new, we really, really need to give them the gift of time to do that. To build capacity needs time. It's hard when we try something new and we feel like it doesn't work and we slip into something new, because we all know that teachers know when we do that, right? Something new. So providing that time is so important. And as we do that, let's try not to get caught in a million directions, because that's what it feels like to our staff and to our teachers and to our students and to our principals sometimes, right? We have a district vision, and sometimes all these new ideas come out because you know what? They're all great ideas, but we can't do them well. We can't do them all well, and we don't want to. We need to make sure that we know what our focus is and align it. So if we're maintaining like 1 to 2 initiatives, stay the course and definitely adjust as needed. Don't abandon right away. Just give it time. What we were working on, what seemed to be successful for us. And sometimes it seems like it's too slow, but what we have learned as a school and as a community is that it's effective when we don't get caught in a million directions and don't chase the new coolest thing. Continually evaluating our data is so important as leadership teams. We also noticed and knew that it was so important to, yes, look at the quantitative data, whether it's your state scores, right, or your common district assessments, or whatever those raw numbers are, right? So critical. But what we knew is, as we're paving this framework and developing the groundwork for how we wanted to model change, we knew that the qualitative data is just as important. And what I mean by that is looking at how do people feel when they come on our campus. We can't overlook that. What does it feel like? What does it sound like? Are you greeted when you come in the door? Do our substitute teachers want to come back? And when I hear substitute teachers saying, I've been to other schools and I really want to come back here, if you need anybody, to me, that's important data. That's really important data. When we get transfers coming in here because parents and students want to be here, that's really important data for us. And lastly, or second to last, I should say, as I'm looking at just a couple more slides here at the end, is to communicate and celebrate your progress and really recognize that the work can be hard. The work is challenging sometimes and sometimes discouraging, right? But it's so important to recognize the progress of what we're doing, of what's going on, because it is hard work. And when we're trying something new and we're, being risky, I always tell teachers, I'd rather come into a classroom and actually see a lesson going sideways or not the way you'd want it to, and you adjusting, rather than this perfect on paper lesson that is a train wreck and it's the one that you've pulled out from 1992, right? We really need to be recognizing our staff, and whether it's your district staff or your site staff or your parents, really celebrate the progress and don't keep it to yourselves. Communicate it, share with your stakeholders, share on social media, because hey, I like to steal and borrow ideas, let me tell you. So celebrating that is really, really key. And as you do that, This is our vision for our school. Is really what we're working on is developing collective self-efficacy. And so part of it is really student self-assessment and reflection, but not just students as the picture suggests, but it's really everybody. How are we continually assessing ourselves, reflecting, giving ourselves that pat on the back, giving us time to really recognize our efforts and our progress, but then moving on, right? Reflecting what are our next steps. That's kind of what I wanted to share with you. But as we think about needs and untapped resources, I want you to really reflect and consider what are your needs? What are your untapped resources? To share your ideas. Just remember, one of the things that started was students waiting outside the door, right? Waiting outside the door early, and just by tweaking a few things, and yes, I needed to talk to cafeteria people and my secretary and office staff and making sure the duty schedule was not gonna, cross any boundaries. That was really important. But what I would challenge you to do is to take a risk. Be vulnerable. It's okay to fail. It's really part of the learning process. And just remember at the end that relationships are absolutely key. That's the way I started. I said relationships are part of this ride, of this journey. So as I start and end, I just huge shout out to my incredible community. I can't do what I do without my team. We call it our King and Crest family. So I just really huge shout out to our teachers, students, parents, all our support staff. We are all part of our team, our district members, school board, our superintendent, and our businesses. We write some grants to get help from our local organizations and businesses. And of course, to Brainman University, who supported and encouraged this transformation process along the way. So Dr. Lee, Dr. Inamoto out there, you guys are awesome. So I leave you to build capacity. We must culture, resources, and absolutely confidence. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you taking time to be here.
Okay, so if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and feel free to type them in the chat box, and Celise will go ahead and read those out loud to Dr. Wilbert. If you don't have any questions, we are all finished, and we will send you a link to this presentation in the next few days. Any questions out there, Celise? I cannot see the chat box.
I just have a note that says, thank you, great presentation and nice work. So far, no questions.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll give it a couple more minutes. If you have questions about the presentation, feel free to enter them into the Q&A box. We'll get them answered now. And if you find you have questions later, the presentation will be hosted on the AXA Resource Hub. You can find the AXA Resource Hub by going to axa.org. We'll also be sending the copy of the presentation or link to view it in the hub to Barbara and Brainman University. They can reach out to you if you have questions, or you can reach out directly to Dr. Kelly Wilbert. Her email address is listed there under contact information on the screen. And I don't see that any other questions have come in, so I'll thank you all for your time today, and we look forward to having you with us on our next presentation with Brainman University. Thank you, Kelly and Barbara.
Thank you, Dr. Wilbert. Have a great day, everyone.
Both of you. Thank you all.
Thank you.